So it's Royal Ascot this week, one of the big meetings of the horse racing year. And it's an absolutely ginormous meeting taking place over 5 days with tons and tons of quality racing. It's one of the biggest betting heats of the year. And as a consequence, it's one of the best trading weeks of the year. There'll be a variety of different opportunities that crop up over the course of the week, whether you're betting or trading. However, this year, there's something completely unique about it that could present one of the best opportunities that you will ever see. What is it? Well, let's find out in the rest of this video. I've been successfully betting and trading for over 2 decades. If you want more videos like this and you want me to describe more of what I do, then give us a like. If you want to talk to like-minded people, visit the BetAngel forum where you can do exactly that, but also visit our website where you can download a free trial of BetAngel. So if there's one thing I can tell you about Royal Ascot this week is that it's going to be full of opportunities. We've basically got 5 days of very high quality racing, and there's a mixture of different types of races in there, from very high profile, high prize money group racing to some slightly smaller races. But each one of them will produce unique opportunities for you. Now, big meetings do trade in a certain way, and I go back and review what I did at prior meetings just to get a grip and understand how that's going to vary from the stuff that I'm doing on a day-to-day basis. And if you want my thoughts on that, I have produced a specific video on that, and I will include the link below so you can actually have a look at how Ascot trades. And of course, when you turn up to this particular week, you can't tell us precisely what's going to happen, but you just know that there will be lots of opportunities. And when we go up on a particular day, there will be certain races that will be nice to trade and others that won't. And there's a strategy and a tactic for each one of those. So again, keep your eyes on social media. And what I'm going to do each day this week is I'm going to post up a different trading strategy each day so that you can see how that would apply to any one particular day or any one particular race within that day. Because over the years, I've built up quite a collection of all of those sorts of examples. But the interesting thing about this year is something's going to happen this week that normally doesn't happen at a Royal Ascot, and it could also lead us in to an absolutely gigantic trade. So if there's one thing that is synonymous with Royal Ascot, that has to be the royal family. But also there is one other person that's synonymous with Ascot, and more particularly Ascot Racecourse, and that is Frankie Dettori, because he even has a statue of himself at the racecourse itself, and that is because he managed to ride winners on every single race in the card quite a few years ago. It's called the Magnificent Seven, as you can see from the image that I'm about to display here. But the interesting thing about this is because of that connection to Ascot, that Magnificent Seven didn't actually occur during Royal Ascot. It was actually in September 96, if my memory serves me correctly, at a standard meeting. But the fact is that remains embedded on people's minds consistently, and it will be brought up at this year's Royal Ascot. I'm sure all of the press will be focusing on that, and a theme will develop around Frankie Dettori. But also, especially this year, because he's actually retiring, and this will be his final Royal Ascot. So when we're looking to trade on Betfair, you're either looking to lay at a low price and back at a higher price, you net the profit between the two, or vice versa. You back at a high price, you lay at a lower price. And obviously the question that often crops up in people's mind is, well, how do you know which way the odds are going to go? But the interesting thing is, when we look at that Magnificent Seven that Frankie Dettori rode, can you imagine what happened to the betting market on that day? Betting exchanges were not around, but you can tell from when that situation occurred that basically the bookmakers are running scared, and they were shortening the odds on Frankie Dettori's horse as he began to ride those winners. And you may have seen me mention this in other videos, that when you basically get a couple of winners in a row, then typically that really sets the market alight. And the more winners you get, the more lit up the market becomes, and that can present some absolutely first-class trading opportunities. If somebody wins one race, then that's expected. If they win 2 races, people start to pay attention to that third race, and all of a sudden the price will begin to come in. So you can back it at a higher price, lay it off, and get a guaranteed profit before the race has even started. Now, the interesting thing is if you're watching that third race and that horse looks like it's going to win and it's about to cross the line, guess what happens on that fourth race? Everybody piles in enormous quantity to basically back that horse off the boards. And if it goes any further than that, then the whole market goes absolutely crazy. it goes completely insane. And these present some of the best trading opportunities that you will ever see. But of course, getting 7 winners across the entire card is almost impossible. And you're sort of thinking, well, that wasn't even at Royal Ascot. But the interesting thing is, Frankie Dettori did a similar thing at Royal Ascot in 2019. So in 2019, the card looked pretty ordinary. And when we looked at this particular day, Frankie Dettori rode the winner in the first race. There was nothing unusual about that. That can happen, and that's exactly what he did in that first race. When we came to the second race, he also won that race. These were both quite competitive races, and he was basically sitting on horses that had decent odds. So 2 in a row wasn't particularly unusual. When we got to the third race, he was riding a horse called Starcatcher. And by then the price on Starcatcher had started to light up a little bit. And then of course, when that race was run, he actually ran out winner on Starcatcher. And the interesting thing about this was immediately in the next race, people started to back the favourite in that next race, which was Stradivarius. So all of a sudden you can see this momentum beginning to build, and the fact that he had a shorter priced favourite in the fourth race really began to light up the market dramatically. But of course, as Stradivarius ran its race, we get to the fifth race on the card, and he was on a horse called Turgenev. Now the interesting thing is that there was nothing special about that particular race. His horse was not the favourite, but of course all of this activity early on in the day really began to set off people backing Dettori horses. And have a think about it. You've got this constant narrative on course with the commentators, the summarizers. You've got loads of drunk people. Some of them may not actually have survived until that particular point. What are they going to do? Most of them have no horse racing knowledge at all. They're going to back the next horse in that particular race. And on this particular occasion in 2019, that horse was Turgenev. The price got absolutely hammered in. It started at odds of 15 and it went off at odds of 4.5. Well, now actually it probably went off at odds slightly bigger than 4.5. That was its low point within the market. But at one point I took a screenshot of what was going on with the market, and there was nearly £250,000 backing this runner at those low odds. The market had really snowballed dramatically at this particular point. Now the interesting thing was, in the post-race interview, Frankie Dettori said even he was getting a little bit excited, and as a consequence he produced Turgenev for the win slightly too early, and I think he finished second. I know he lost, but I think he finished second. I can't quite remember off the top of my head now. But fundamentally speaking, that completely changed the complexion of the horse in the next race. And the interesting thing from a trading perspective is all of the horses in the races subsequently, after he'd actually won, were all being backed in heavily. But when Turgenev lost, basically the price went rocketing out. So whether you backed it or you laid it, there was an opportunity there for you. The most important thing was that you were picking up that the opportunity was there, and that narrative and theme was running through the day. But that was one of the best ever days that I had at Royal Ascot, and on that Turgenev race, I actually managed to make £600 before the race had started, regardless of who goes on to win. And that was simply by following the market, following all of that heavy backing activity and closing that position before the race had actually started, and sort of going from there. It was an absolutely first-class opportunity. Now the interesting thing is, things like that don't happen all of the time, but of course this year we have an enhanced narrative. Frankie Dettori is going to retire, everybody's going to be talking about it, and it won't take many winners from Dettori to really set off some of that activity. So if you're actually looking to trade Ascot this week, there are going to be many ways to trade it. I'm going to throw up some examples for you this week on my social media feed, so you can see many different trading styles and where you would most likely use them in the market. And that includes some trades that I've done at previous Ascot races. But when we're looking at this year, it's going to be really important to keep an eye on that Frankie Dettori story. If you can't keep an active eye on everything that's going on, you can actually download automation into BetAngel that will actually monitor the winners of each individual race. And that will actually highlight to you if there's been a couple of consecutive winners or so. That's very easy to download and use in BetAngel, and it can alert you to what's going on, because you may be looking at Frankie Dettori and in fact another jockey is the one that's won a couple of races. BetAngel can do that all for you, and it's a strategy that would just work generally quite well anyway when those opportunities occur. But because we're looking at the enhanced importance of Dettori riding his very last Royal Ascot this year, I think this is something that I'm going to be really closely watching, just to keep an eye on and see how that affects the market later on. Because if any of that sort of thing that's happened that we've seen before, then I think we could be in for an absolute cracker this year.